If you're hiring a nanny, a background check isn't optional. It's an essential step for learning more about who's walking into your home. By the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of what background checks cover, what they don't, how much they cost, how to run one, and what else you can do to hire with more confidence. Let's talk about checks, baby. Background checks. When it comes to our kids, safety is always a top priority. That becomes especially important when you're welcoming a nanny into your home. And in this case, knowledge is power. Background checks go beyond what you'll find in a Google search and help you feel more confident in the person you're hiring. But what exactly do they include? The first thing to know, there is no single universal nanny background check. What's included depends on how you find your nanny, the type of check you purchase, or what the platform you're using might require. In the US, there is no single database with everyone's criminal history. Providers pull from a mix of federal, state, and county level sources. That's why the scope of the check matters. You need to know just how comprehensive it really is. Now let's take a look at an example of what a background check could include. This part gets a little technical, so we're going to use my daughter's magnet tiles to help break it down. First, there's a SSN trace. This checks a social security number against various credit header databases to find where the person has lived over the last 7 years, as well as alternative names and aliases. This history helps the background check providers know exactly where to look for records. Second is a multi-jurisdictional database search. This is a commercial database that pulls various records from a wide range of state, county, and other criminal record resources. Third is a sex offender registry search. This is the same information that's available in the National Sex Offender Public website. It includes data from 49 states plus several territories. It's a great resource, but it's important to keep in mind that sex offender checks are limited by federal and state laws and may not reveal an individual's entire offender history. Fourth is a federal record search. This looks specifically for federal crimes, things like money laundering, drug trafficking, or kidnapping. These are crimes that wouldn't necessarily show up in a standard state or county search. And finally, a county criminal record search. This searches each county where the person has lived for the past 7 years based on the SSN trace. Together, these 5 components give you a much more complete picture than a basic Google search ever could. And the good news, if you're using Care.com, every caregiver you talk with has already been through this 5-step background check. Care.com also offers additional checks that go deeper and provide the most up-to-date information with dedicated reports for your review. You can also request additional safety reports like motor vehicle record checks and social media checks. For my family, the motor vehicle check wasn't optional. Our nanny drives our kids, so we needed to know exactly who was behind that wheel. On other platforms, you'll need to figure out if background checks are even required, and if so, what's included. Other checks may be less thorough. They may, for example, only include the county where the caregiver currently lives rather than the past 7 years. And those nanny referrals you got from a Facebook group or via text, you don't know if they've been background checked either, so you should absolutely run one. But here's the thing. Even the most comprehensive background check has limitations. Next, we'll cover exactly what they can and can't tell you. No background check is perfect, and there are a few specific reasons why. One is scope. What gets searched and what actually shows up varies by state and sometimes even by county. No check is truly nationwide. Also, it's very common for people to have multiple names in legal records, especially if they've been married, and not all background checks search aliases. The second is accuracy. The system isn't perfect. There can be reporting delays or data inaccuracies that mean you get incomplete or incorrect information. That said, knowing these limitations doesn't change the bottom line. Running a background check is still an absolute must. It's just one part of a broader set of safety steps we'll cover later in this video. So how do you actually background check a nanny or a childcare provider? There are 2 main ways. The first, using a dedicated background check provider. You order the check based on whatever scope you want or what they offer. They handle the search, and you get the results. This works if you've already connected with the nanny through a referral or found someone on your own. Background checks are not pass-fail. They simply surface info you can use to make a more informed hiring decision. The second way to go is using a caregiver search platform like Care.com that requires background checks. Just remember, not all platforms require background checks, and if they do, each platform's checks may differ in scope and coverage. With the Care.com membership, you can also request your caregiver to opt into continuous background checks, so you get notified of newly reportable criminal activity. Now let's talk about cost, because how much you spend can determine how comprehensive your check is. Basic background checks for a nanny typically run between $30 and $100. A search that includes fewer sources will sit at the lower end. A more thorough check that includes federal courthouse records and county-level searches across multiple areas will cost more. You're paying for how wide that net is cast. One thing worth knowing, some states charge fees to access their criminal records, which can affect the final price depending on where you live. And if you're using Care.com, that initial background check we mentioned is run on every individual caregiver at no extra cost. Before you go ahead and run that check though, there's one step most parents skip that you actually shouldn't, and skipping it could get you into legal trouble. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, you are legally required to get written permission before running a background check on a nanny, and this applies to you as a private employer. The rules on how consent must be obtained vary by state or even city, so it's important to make sure you're following the laws for your area. And be aware that if you decide not to hire someone based on their background check, there are also a few legal requirements for handling that. The great news is, whether you're using a third-party background check service or a site like Care.com, you'll have help getting this consent. If you're feeling uncomfortable about asking your nanny to consent to a background check, remember, this isn't overstepping. You're not being overprotective. This is a completely normal and necessary part of hiring someone to care for your family. Next, beyond the standard background check, there are a couple of additional checks worth considering depending on your situation. We mentioned these earlier, but let's go deeper. The first is a motor vehicle records check, or MVR. If your nanny is going to be driving your kids anywhere, this is a must. It covers license status, restrictions, traffic violations, accidents, and DUIs. You can add an MVR through most background check providers, and it's available through Care.com as well. The second is a social media check. A lot of families want a fuller picture of who they're inviting into their home. On Care.com, you can get a social media check that covers up to 7 years of online activity, looking out for inappropriate content on major platforms, as well as news articles and web pages. Neither of these replaces a background check, but together they give you a more complete picture of who you're hiring. So what else can you do to feel good about your decision? There are 4 more things you can do to make sure you feel confident with the nanny. The first is doing a simple Google search. Search the nanny's full name online and check out their social media profiles. If your kids are going to the nanny's home, look up the address and reach out to schedule a visit. The second is verifying identity and credentials, even after a platform has done its verification. Take a copy of the nanny's ID yourself. If they have credentials like CPR certification or early childhood education training, ask to see those too. Next is the interview and references. Come prepared with real questions, and if you need some ideas, Care.com has a great resource we'll link in the description below. Then collect 2 or 3 references and actually call them. Hearing directly from families who've worked with this person is one of the most valuable things you can do. The fourth is a working trial. Arrange a trial period. This is your chance to see how the nanny actually interacts with your kids in real life. You're not overthinking this. Trust matters, and seeing someone with your kids can really help clarify things. At the end of the day, background checks give you some data, but it's also really important that you and your kids feel safe and happy in your nanny's presence. Both matter. Now you know exactly what goes into a nanny background check and how to run one. But vetting is just the first step. Up next, the interview questions that actually tell you who you're hiring.